as they're coming into the space. We are hosting this meeting in webinar format, which means attendees tonight, you won't see your video, but you will be able to raise your hand to participate during the discussion time. So we do want you to find that raise your hand button and be familiar with that, so you're ready to participate when we get to the feedback portion of our evening. I want to thank you all for joining us. And Commissioner Schrader, if you would like to kick off our agenda tonight.
All right, thanks, Katie. So I'm going to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time to be here at our meeting tonight, because as community leaders, you're pretty important to the county. And tonight it's going to be a little different than our usual format, because we've heard from the community that you need a debrief on the wildfire experience. So this particular meeting is the beginning of a series of opportunities for us to listen to you and learn more about your experiences living through the wildfire response and recovery. And I want to thank the Committee for Citizen Involvement for allowing us the grace to utilize the community leaders meeting for this purpose. It's been a tough year. Not only have we experienced a pandemic, the wildfires, a major ice storm. So we are learning now in this new era, whatever you're going to call it at this point, that we are going to have to be prepared for emergencies. And so we are aware that a number of folks have expressed concern that it's taken this long to get to this point. But we want to acknowledge that we've had traumatic experiences throughout our entire community, and we are here as a county to support you as best we can and to listen and learn about what we need to do better to better serve you in future emergencies. And this series of opportunities designed for our debrief are designed to help us ensure that we have an inclusive and thorough process. So we'll start out with a brief update from our disaster management team about how your feedback will be used in updating our emergency operations plan, and also some of the work we have done to be prepared for this coming fire season. The primary focus of this meeting, however, will be listening to you and getting your feedback. We won't have all the answers for you tonight, but we will commit to getting back to you with the information you're looking for and keeping you updated on the progress of the emergency operations plan. Chair Smith and Commissioner Savas are not able to join us this evening. However, the meeting recording will be made available to them so that they can listen to the conversations. Both of our commissioners who aren't here tonight are very dedicated public servants, and I know that they will listen. And also as a commission that we will take all of your feedback seriously. So thanks for taking the time to be here this evening. And I appreciate all of you. Just as a little bit of history, I started out as a member of the CCI back in the day, and little did I know that I would end up in this spot years later. So the CCI and community involvement is very near and dear to my heart. So thanks. Okay. So Kate, I guess it's back to you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. We want to welcome everybody. I want to echo what Commissioner Schrader said. We are so grateful for you making the time to be with us tonight. And we wanted to take a quick moment to introduce the panelists that you see on your screen. We know that you may not be familiar with all the faces you're seeing tonight. So while we are going around and introducing ourselves, I was hoping that you all could use chat, the chat function, to share what CPO or Hamlet you are representing tonight. That'll help us know what geographic areas this feedback is coming from, so we can make sure that that's reflected as we record your feedback and utilize your feedback in the emergency operation plan and future emergency preparedness. So you probably recognize me at this point. I'm Katie Wilson, and I'm the community liaison. I support community involvement in public and government affairs. And you can reach out to me about anything that you need assistance with at the county, and I will do my best to connect you as best I can. I support the Hamlets and CPOs and all other functions of community engagement in the county. And so I will hand it off, and we'll just popcorn around the panelists so that we make sure that we introduce everybody. So Kimberly, would you like to go next?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kimberly Dinwiddie, and I'm the county's Public Information Officer.
And then Corey, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Corey Matthews. I'm a mediator and facilitator for Clackamas County.
Great. And Nancy?
Good evening, everyone. I am Nancy Bush, and I am the county's operations officer. And previously during this event, I was the commander for the EOC and was also the director for disaster management. So I'm switching roles a little bit.
And Lauren?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren McNeil with Resolution Services. I'm very glad to be with you this evening. And with Corey, I will be facilitating the feedback portion.
Great. Daniel?
Good evening. My name is Daniel Neinbauer. I am the interim director of disaster management as Nancy has moved on to her current position.
Great. Chris?
Evening, everyone. Chris Lyons, Government Affairs Manager with the county, and during this legislative session, also the county lobbyist.
And Garrett, I don't know if Garrett's hiding behind his screen. Are you there? Okay. Garrett?
Garrett Teague, Video Production Coordinator for Clackamas County and sometimes Zoom Guru.
Thank you, Garrett. Tonya?
Good evening, everyone. Tonya Holowetsky, Deputy Director from PGA. Welcome to our meeting. Your meeting.
Sue?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Hildick. I'm the Director of Public and Government Affairs. We're very, very happy to have this meeting finally happening tonight.
And Commissioner Scholl? Are you able to? I know Commissioner Scholl said he is on his phone. He might not be able to turn his mic on. But Commissioner Scholl is joining us. Commissioner
I'm
Fisher?
sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Are you there?
Katie? Yeah, I was fiddling with this iPhone, Katie. I'm sorry. Good evening.
No problem.
Commissioner Shaw, Clackamas County, and welcome to this beautiful Clackamas County evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher?
Good evening, everyone. So nice that everyone can be here and join us. Really appreciate it.
Great. And then you heard from Commissioner Schrader earlier. So thank you again. This is our panel this evening, and we will be supporting the meeting. I'm going to take just a quick second to share the agenda for those of you that need the reminder. We did make a minor adjustment to the agenda that was sent out to you to make more time for the community sharing portion of the meeting. And so you'll see that we actually extended the community wildfire feedback to provide more time for you to provide feedback. The portion that was removed was an update about the community engagement framework, and we'll share that at a later time so that you're familiar with that as well. So this evening, we will be handing the mic off shortly to Daniel Neinbauer to give you the update on the emergency operations plan, and then we will get to the real heart of the meeting is listening to you. And so that portion, the community wildfire feedback portion, will be facilitated by Lauren and Corey from Resolution Services, and we have them here to help us so that we really can focus on listening to what you're saying tonight. We want to prioritize hearing you, and we really encourage you to provide us with the open and honest feedback. We want you to feel safe doing that. And if there's anything this evening that you aren't able to share, you of course are welcome to share that with me via email, and I'd be happy to pass it along. But this is the beginning of a series of events, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the meeting, but there will be other opportunities to share. So if something comes up after the meeting that you didn't feel like you were able to share, there will be other opportunities for you to provide that feedback as well. So I'm going to stop my screen share, and I'm going to welcome Daniel to present to you about the emergency operations plan.
Sure. Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
And as Katie pulls up the slides, we'll talk a little bit about the emergency operations plan. and where we're currently going with that planning, as well as a little bit of other planning, and talk specifically a little bit about how your feedback here today will be incorporated into that, and hopefully feedback that we continue to receive, not only via this means, but other means of engagement, and what that means. So if we go to the next slide.
Thinking about it. Sorry,
Oh.
Daniel.
No worries. The emergency operation plan serves as a critical part of our planning process, and what we have as a cycle of kind of continuous change and response and improvement as we go through our normal cycles. And so, you know, we obviously spend a lot of time trying to prevent and mitigate disasters from impacting us. Then we do a lot of about preparedness and trying to get individuals prepared and trying to get the county prepared. Then the emergency operation plan really looks at how we guide that response from when the incident, when we either first find out about the incident, if we have warning, and like in some cases we do with wildfires, or if we then move on into a response, and it's a more immediate response, all the way into a little bit into our short-term recovery. And once we get past that, we start talking a little bit more in recovery plans. But the emergency operation plans help us to get into that phase and kind of move on to into that recovery. So how do we use that? The EOP? The EOP really provides guidance for us in those response and initial recovery actions. It really sets forth lines of authority and organizational relationships within the county, as well as to some organizations external to the county. And it shows how all those counties are going to be coordinated. It gives us a structure that we can operate under, that we train our staff to operate under. And it works as a structure called the National Incident Management System that the entire country is familiar with. And so as we have our partners, as the state and the federal government comes to help, then they'll understand what that goes for.
Daniel, can I interrupt just for a second? Katie, the slideshow is not showing. It's still showing kind of the initial PowerPoint screen. I think you just need to make sure.
Let me try that again. I apologize, folks.
Give it one more try to come on there.
Is that working better?
There we go. It gives us, yeah, that shows a slide that we're currently on.
Okay.
Other thing that's very important is it outlines and assigns roles and responsibilities for the county departments, specific county staff, and then key response partners, other organizations that we partner with. And part of the reasons that's very important is because often we're doing things slightly differently than we do them every day. And so we like to line out who is responsible for what, so that we're not figuring that out in the midst of the disaster. And it focuses really on a lot of the response elements. So we're focusing on protecting the public, getting alerts and warning out, pushing out emergency information, a lot of both for the fire, and as we saw, unfortunately, in February, the ice storm, sheltering operations become very important, and as well as evacuation. And so the EOP helps us talk around this and outline some of those responsibilities. Go to the next slide, Katie. The Emergency Operations Center is kind of how we implement that plan during an emergency. And as we activate that, we bring in all of the different county partners as well as external partners to coordinate those, all those response elements. And as you can see from these pictures, these were responses in no COVID times, and COVID definitely made it a little more challenging to the wildfire, as we had to space out a lot more and take up a lot more footprint. But the advantage of the EOC is it pulls in a lot of partners into one location where we can put up information that everyone can see. We can have easy conversations and be able to talk. And so that's how we functioned during the wildfires. We activated our EOC, which was already activated for COVID, but we added a lot more people in and to be able to move on. So we can go to the next slide. And so one of the reasons the EOP is very important is it is a legal document, and it grants us authorities as reviewed by the board to act in disasters. And we update every 4 years. The next update is due March 22nd. That's actually a year delayed from when it normally would be, but everything that happened this past year delayed it, but we are moving strongly into getting it done by this year. It is a very iterative and collaborative process. You start really revising your EOP as soon as it's done. So March 22nd, when we have a promulgated copy by the board, by April, we'll already be making notes in what the next version is going to look at that. So we're constantly changing and making edits to it. And we're constantly looking for opportunities to make it a more collaborative process, not only internal to the county, as well as our other agency and organizational partners, but with the community as well. It's very important to understand how it impacts everyone and goes well. So this is great to get feedback today, as well as through the series of meetings we will have here to get into that EOP. But we do have other engagement points planned, not only for city and county partners, but for our community partners as well. And the last slide, please, Katie. So the other part that we wanted to be able to mention is what else we will be using the information we're talking here today for is we're already starting for our wildfire planning for 2021. We've had talks with the Red Cross on where we're going to locate shelters, how we're going to open shelters, with PGE on how we're going to be working any potential changes in their service based on weather and what that means, with the sheriff's office to make sure that we've got people going about to let individuals know where evacuation zones are, with the Clackamas County 911, we refer to as CCOM, that helps us get those initial alerts. We had so many great community and faith-based organizations that helped with sheltering and other response efforts and making sure that we've got those connections strong, and we have all the right numbers and have a good understanding of how we can support each other. And that's just this mattering. We've been talking with our cities to get ready within the cities in the Clackamas County, as well as our other county partners that provided support for us during the wildfires, just to make sure that, you know, we all have a good understanding of how we can support each other through this wildfire season. So we're definitely looking forward to getting a lot of that. And we'll be taking notes today on how we can incorporate your experiences into better planning for this wildfire season and for the EOP for the next version of that we do. All right, Katie, that's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. I apologize for the technical issues with me sharing. So our next portion of the evening is really jumping into hearing from you, the community. So I'd like to give as much time to that as possible. So Lauren and Corey, if you'd like to take the lead, we will get started.
Great, thank you, Katie. So
sure.
The way that we have organized this segment is asking for your feedback in 5 main areas. And the areas are notification, communications, evacuation protocols, re-entry protocols, and recovery efforts. And in each of these, in our original time, we had about 15 minutes. So we'll stick to that loosely and see how we go. Of course, you may have comments on many of the different areas, and we want you to offer your thoughts as much as possible. These prompts are there to make sure that we invite feedback in all of these different areas. So the way it's going to happen is we'll have some prompts for each one, and they'll show up on the slide. And looks like you're about to do that, Katie.
Yeah.
And so I'll go ahead as soon as Katie has this up and read you the first one and the prompts. And
Katie, you're sharing your desktop.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Rather than your Word document.
Okay, I apologize.
That's all right. So while
yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, while Katie's doing that, I'll just remind you again that we're asking you to raise your hand. Mike, I see your hand. And as people raise their hand, then you're in order. And then I'll call on a person to share. And that means that you then have to unmute on your end, and then you can share. We are eager for your feedback, and a couple of important things. I want to just echo the comments that have already been made, that you will have more opportunities. So do not feel this is your one and only time to share a certain amount of feedback or kinds of feedback. You will have other opportunities. And also, this evening is focused particularly on feedback to the county, so that at future meetings, there will be representatives for other functions, for example, fire, which is not a county function. And so we ask you to think about that as you offer feedback, to very much focus on the kinds of things that you want to offer that the county did well, and also what you would like to see happen next time in the form of constructive feedback. So the first prompt is, I'm just going to read this little blue part out for you around notification. We say, Clackamas County uses the public alerts system to notify its residents of a pending or existing emergency. Residents must sign up to receive localized emergency messages on their cell, VoIP phone, and TTY/TDD devices. The system also enables Clackamas County to issue wireless emergency alerts, which sends alerts to all WEA-enabled cell devices in the area. There are times when issuing a notification may be delayed or fail if phone networks are not working. Issuing notifications is complex, and there is often some confusion when notifications are issued. So that's just a little preamble about this topic. So we're hoping that as you share, you will let us know if you were signed up in the system, and then what your experience was overall about receiving notifications. If you want to offer thoughts about whether the link to the wildfire map helped to eliminate confusion. And then more broadly, what worked around notification, and what would you like to see? What could be improved? So I see Mike, you have your hand up first, so go right ahead.
Thank you, Lauren. So I live near Clackamas High School. So I live in an urban area, not in a forest area. I had signed up with the system in advance. The experience receiving notifications was mixed. Sometimes I got them, sometimes I didn't. And sometimes I got them alerting me when things were getting bad. Sometimes I didn't get them when things were getting better. Katie, God love her, put up with, I can't tell you how many emails from me trying to find out what's going on. And when would be the next press conference that I could attend to get current information. And it was unfortunate those were not held on a more regular basis, on a regularly scheduled basis. The wildfire map was helpful, but only in as much as you had to know when it was updated. And the way you would find out it was updated is either because you were notified or not notified, or you just randomly checked and saw there had been a change. I appreciated the press briefings. I've now learned subsequent to them, they weren't always entirely accurate, which was unfortunate. If you're going to host a press briefing, please be complete, please be accurate, and please tell the truth. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. So it sounds like in particular, you would recommend regularly scheduled press briefings, and also clarity about when the map was updated, and completeness and accuracy in the information offered at the press conferences. Did I get that?
Lauren, that's correct. But also, if we're going to rely, if citizens are going to rely on residents, if residents are going to rely on notification system, the notification system has to work. If the notification system doesn't work, then anything we're talking about relative to a map or press conferences, that's all secondary. If we don't get a notice saying, hey, there's a problem, you need to react, we're screwed.
Yes, right. Sorry, I didn't pick that up. That was your first comment, that because you had the experience that it was that you sometimes received notifications and sometimes you did not. So you want to be sure that the system is fully on board.
Correct. Thank you, Lauren.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. All right. And Martin, I have you next. Martin Myers.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my name's Martin Myers. I am the chair of the Redland Viola Fishers Mill CPO. I also am involved with the CPO Summit. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's basically an aggregation of various different active CPOs that exist in the county. And we get together on a pretty regular basis, usually once a month, and we talk things over. Wildfire, of course, was one of the main topics at some of the CPO summits, and it was also a topic at several of our CPO meetings in Redland. Redland was hit hard by this, and I would even say Redland was traumatized by the wildfires. If my face was Redland, we had fires up on Springwater, we had fires down on Beaver Creek, we had fires closer in on Redland, we had fires on Caris Road, we had fires in the Highland. And we had both the Estacada fire coming in at us and the Mattoon fire coming in at us. It was for a lot of the community, only a change in the direction of the wind that saved us. Most people in our area were evacuated for over a week. I was out 12 days. Many people were out more. I don't know if this statistic has been debated around my CPO, but we have heard, and someone has asserted, that we have more horses in Clackamas County than any other nation in the country. I don't know how I'd ever prove or disprove that, but it is an interesting statistic. So where we are fairly thinly populated, we have a lot of domestic animals that we also need to take care of. I have three things I want to talk about tonight. First is communication. And it wasn't so much, I'll first say that when the press briefings came up, they were pretty helpful. The wildfire map, I know it's a moving target, that was helpful too. What really happened is early on, and to the extent that people in our community did not or were not tied into that system, the cell phone simply was just not very helpful, and it was very summary. We knew what was coming at us. I was looking at photos today of clouds, red and purple, within miles of our house. We knew that this was really bad. What we had was a vacuum of information. Now we're in a time right now where we can't all turn to Walter Cronkite to learn what's going on in the world. One of the ways that most people get their information is through social media, and one of the ways that they do this is through local Facebook pages. Now, Redland has a very active local Facebook page. Some 4,000 residents are active members, or at least members of that Facebook page. There are other local Facebook pages in the other areas. This is something that should be acknowledged and realized. This would have been the place for people to understand and see what was going on who were not necessarily tied in with the county. We have a lot of very reluctant people out here to involve themselves with the county. We're a lot of standalone people. There are a lot of people who just don't want to be connected with the county, but they will listen to their neighbors. So what happened is that we were looking for people and word on Facebook to tell us what to do. This was both when we were here and after we were evacuated. And the problem was with miscommunication and bad communication. I will credit the county fire and I will credit the county sheriff's department with making one effort to come out and talk to our community. Unfortunately, they did it through a person who was not a member of our community. They did not do it through the CPOs or anybody who was recognized within the community. They were contacted by somebody who lived outside the community, who came in and invited certain people to a meeting. We then heard about it on Facebook that, oh, there was a meeting of the community where the fire department and the county sheriff's department told us what was going on. And from that point forward, the dialogues and the opinions diverged. So Martin, some people, what?
Can I just help here for a second? So I want to make sure.
Just keep talking if I could, and let me finish my point, and then we could come back. Would that be all right? I've spent a little time preparing for this today, and I've given it a lot of thought. So I appreciate the opportunity to say it, but I'm not done yet. So the county, the sheriffs and the fire came out to meet with us, but not with anybody from the community. So therefore, the opinions diverged on what was said. Some people said everything's under control, things are in control. Other people were saying Antifa is lighting fires in your area. We had people scared, people sleeping with guns, locking their homes in ways that had never happened before. We had people worried about the X's and the O's on the driveways because they believed that this was Antifa and that they were marking where the good assets were located. We had people chasing Subarus. We had people chasing people dressed in black. We had one post, everyone was worried because somebody was hitchhiking up Redland with a skateboard. All of these are indications of Antifa, I guess. Now, this went on for a long time. And I want to tell you, in terms of trauma, our community became armed because there was not enough message to say something different. When I came up to check on my animals after I had evacuated, I was greeted with an armed man at Redland gas station who had a shotgun on his hip and was talking into a mic. Very shortly after that, I had a car behind me. And that car behind me followed me all the way up to my house. And across from my house, there was a man with an AK-47 standing on the side of Ridge Road. Okay? None of these people did I recognize. It was out of control. When I contacted the county sheriff's department, and eventually what happened is they released a video of the meeting that was organized by this individual. And when I talked to the county and I asked them about this and asked them to communicate back that we needed help, that we were getting miscommunications in our area, the person that called me back said that no meeting occurred, that nothing was stated. And in the end, it was the person who was in the video standing behind the man running the meeting, okay? This was just a few days after the problems that escalated that were along these very same lines. We needed help and we did not get it. So my first point of 3 is that we need communication and we need to have established ways to get this done. There needs to be a website by the county that is active and that all people can go to, in addition to what we get on our cell phones. I would also like to volunteer by myself or for my Redland CPO, but also for the other CPOs at the summit, that we would like to help with this. We are in contact with our community on a regular basis. We form some level of authority that myself or somebody else from the CPO, mirroring the words of the sheriff's department or the fire department, could have helped dispel false rumors. This didn't happen. It is really a very serious thing. Even this week, I'm hearing about whether Antifa is going to start fires out in our area in the fall. Okay, so it's one of those things that comes and you can't get rid of it. Communication is the very first thing I really want you guys to focus on. The second is evacuation routes. It was I left right away. We knew what was coming, but a lot of my community wasn't evacuated until a day or two into it. And there were people stuck on Redland Road for 3, 4 hours, 5 hours. They were locked in traffic. There was nobody helping directing traffic. There's been a lot of things bannered about a better way to do this, but we really need people who understand evacuation routes to help us figure out how to get out of our community next time. It was a danger. It was a catastrophe waiting to happen with all these people lined up on Redland Road. It was lined up all the way back to the Redland Fisher's Mill corner from down at 213. So it was really, really bad. We'd like to help with that because I don't think it can just happen with the county resources. I think you're going to need volunteers for these type of works. I would like to help put you in contact with people who could help with this. And I'd like to start a dialogue at the CPO level or at some level with my immediate community on how and where to evacuate. This is really important. Thirdly, and it's I think of it as yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, and I do want to observe that in our 15 minutes per segment, we're getting close to the end of that, and there are several other people who have their hands, and you have offered thoughts in most of the other domains, right, as well. I appreciate your thoughts, and I just want to make sure that you know that you will have an opportunity to speak to the other areas.
My third point doesn't fit well within any of the 5 categories. So I'll just go ahead and real quickly go over it, and then I'll try and be quiet. Care and removal of livestock. This was another thing that fortunately was able to coordinate on an informal basis within our community. and we generally got the animals out. But there is some kind of oversight that needs to come into this, and that's the third thing. So some kind of care of the horses, the wild, the animals that need to be evacuated. That's all I have for right now. I appreciate you guys doing it. Katie, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you, Martin. And thanks for your, really thinking through the various parts that worked and didn't work. And I'll just call out, I heard your recommendation that there be a social media presence as part of notification and updates, communication overall, and also that for press conferences and such, that it would be, your recommendation is that there be somebody from the community who is a part of that to increase buy-in and comfort with the information being disseminated. Did I get those pieces?
Yeah, that's correct. I would say maybe think about how it is that people out here absorb communications rather than how it would be best for Clackamas to make them.
Yes, okay. Point well taken. Okay, so there are several of you who have your hands up. And so I'm just going to go to the second slide at this point and read that out. And then you may speak to notification if you still wish to in the next segment as well. This is just to prompt and make sure we're getting feedback in all the areas. So Katie, will you go to the next slide, please? So this is the communications domain, and the preamble here just says Clackamas County leveraged all its main communication channels to help keep residents informed during the wildfires, such as the website, that's the county website, social media channels, email notices, and press conferences. Which did you rely on for up-to-date information? What worked and what can be improved? And Richard, I will take you next.
Hi, I'm Rich Nepine. I live near the Fred Meyers in Oak Grove. I am in the CPO, and I am also a member of the Oak Lodge CERT team. My house filled with smoke, basically, enough to set off my fire alarms, and that got my attention. I got phone messages on the automatic system, but they told me about evacuations in areas not where I was. So I'm not sure how you do that or how you can arrange that, but the alert system kept alerting me to areas that were south of me or just not where I was. My area only got to a 1 on the evacuation, and then the wind changed and they took it away. Social media was the most helpful to me. I did check with the county site on a regular basis, both for my family and for CERT, to try to keep up with what's going on, making sure that CERT has the most up-to-date information, establishing some kind of line of communication from probably the fire department to CERT, because we have internal communications that spread around the area. Is probably important. And the maps were basically what I relied on most to see as the fire zones changed and the evacuation zones changed. Keeping the maps up to date seemed to me to be the most helpful in my situation. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. This is Corey again. Yeah, so thank you. Some useful information, and as you're pointing out, some pretty specific responses to our questions. Sounds like specifically phone messages you experienced, although some of the alert system you said was not specific to your area, and so there was some confusion maybe around that. You did say that social media was the most helpful, and the maps. So the maps were also relied on the most, and so very specific feedback. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. Okay, So next, let's see, it looks like Bill Merchant. You are next. I'll hit allow there and oh, I see how this goes. Okay, just one moment. Got it. Okay, Bill, you are on. If you are unmuted, you can give us feedback in the area of communications or the prior prompt as you wish.
Thank you. I'd like to, first off, I'd like to thank all of you for having this kind of meeting to talk to us. My personal recommendation is to increase the communications, but in all manner of communications. I fully agree with Mike. I got lots of notifications that were pretty meaningless to me, that, you know, they weren't in my area. I think that the regularly scheduled news conferences would be better than just having them sort of ad hoc and random, because if you know that there's going to be a news conference at 4, you can try to get to it. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that we were up without power for much of this time too. And sometimes we could have internet and sometimes we couldn't. The phone system mostly works. So it would be great if there was like a constant repeating message on some phone system, some call that we could call in to find out what was happening, because we couldn't get to the internet. We couldn't get to the maps. All we could do was try to figure out what was going on. And sometimes that was really difficult, but the phone pretty much always worked. So if you could have a phone message that was saying, this is what's happening here, this, you know, just echoing what the news conference was saying, that would be very helpful to those of us who got cut off from the internet.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, some specific and helpful feedback. And it sounds like your first message was to increase all methods of communication. And specifically, you have a specific idea about news conferences, that they should be regularly scheduled rather than ad hoc, as you say, so that you can expect when they can happen. And also, in terms of a specific mode, it sounds like the phone system for you worked the best. And you have a suggestion about how to use the phone system as a means of spreading information. So thank you for this input.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the county taking this to heart, because it was a horrible, horrible experience for all of us not living in urban areas.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yes, exactly. That's what we're definitely hearing from a lot of folks, how difficult it was. So thank you for taking the time then, on top of the difficulty, to think about this and give really thoughtful feedback. Okay. All right. So next we have, it looks like I have Brent Perry's. Brent, if you can unmute.
I think I've unmuted.
Okay, there you are. Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to reiterate what Martin had said. I was going to try to take your notifications as you've or your 4 items, and I was only going to just take these one at a time. Martin just let you have it, and which was good, and I appreciate that, because I think that some of these aren't going to be, some of our problems aren't going to be coming up, but the notifications. So the notifications on the phones come through the towers, the cell phone towers. Well, most of the cell phone towers, as maybe some of you don't know, are up in the woods, and they're high on hills, and a lot of them shut down. So there was shutdown of the phone notifications. And as far as the communications go, the communications were not active. And it had many people in the outlying areas in which the fire was encroaching on very freaked out, and they were running for their lives. And a lot of times they were running for their lives for no reason. And, so the communication between the fire management people and the county must be solidified. And they have wildfire maps, and I'm not sure how accurate those were, but they had people in Canby leaving. Well, there's 30 miles before that happens. And, you know, somebody with competence must try to figure out exactly what that wildfire is doing and where it's going. My credentials are limited. However, I do fight wildfires on a pretty regular basis, which we did fight the fires in Estacada. However, you know, for the community, which is what I stand for, were completely scared out of their minds. And the difference between the several problems that we had this year was COVID, obviously. And then we had wildfires, and then we had a giant ice storm. And the difference between the two is everybody had to evacuate their homes. And with the ice storm, everybody got stuck in their homes. So if you evacuate your home, you leave with what you've got in hand and you run for your life. And that feeling isn't very good. And so the communication part of that was very poor. You know, we spend a lot of money on these things and we try to get it right. And we've had a couple of emergencies and neither one of them has worked very well. So I do appreciate, you know, the community's leaders meeting to give us a chance to speak on this. And I'm sure that I will speak again soon. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Brent. So it sounds like, yeah, you're describing the fear that a lot of the community was in during this circumstance. And you're raising the concern that if there's any inaccuracy in the communication, that this makes it harder, right, for residents, especially when they're leaving their homes. And it sounds like you're generally really emphasizing the hope that any communication coming in whatever means that works is accurate. That's the most, it sounds like the biggest thing. And you're hoping to improve communications in a variety of ways, right? Is that anything?
Correct. I think, you know, everybody has a cell phone, and the cell phones work when the towers are up. You know, if you have electricity, you can get on the internet, as Bill brought up. However, if you have neither one of those, the communications are very poor. And out here in the rurals, you know, a lot of people are older people and they're heritage people, let's say, and they have not adapted to the ways of communication. And I do have to give kudos to the sheriff's department, which did come out and knock on people's doors. And I did think that actually they were the ones that put the X's and the O's in the driveways for some meaning, which, you know, we can get into that later. But
sure.
I do commend them for knocking on doors, especially. I've had a lot of old people tell me that the sheriff's department did come out and make sure that they were notified. So I do commend those people. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you for keeping in mind our elderly residents, and because cell phones may be useful, but particular folks aren't adept with cell phones or don't have a cell phone. So thank you for keeping those in mind. All right. Okay. So let's see. Thank you, Brent, for your what you've provided. Let's see. And next. And speaking of technology, I'm working on this. Got it. Okay, so Joan Zuber, I think you are next, and looks like you're muted at the moment. If you could unmute yourself. And if you're not ready to talk, I can move to the next person, come back to you. There's one other person in line. So, oh, there you are. Is it working for you, Joan? It looks like you unmuted. We can't hear you. Yeah, so we don't hear you right now, Joan. On our icon, it shows that you're unmuted, but can't hear you at the moment. So perhaps I'll come back to you. Why don't I take the next person and come back to you, Joan, and we'll see if we can get this worked out. Okay, so the next person is RJ Cook, and then we'll go back to Joan right after that. So RJ, yes, looks like you're unmuted now.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining in tonight also. I guess my comments are not so much of during the fire, but post-fire. And I think probably the biggest thing was that, you know, I've listened to a lot of policy sessions and the business meetings when Nancy, I was like, oh, it's the, you know, Nancy hour, 2 days a week. And that was how most people got their information in the county staff and stuff. But looking at the public, It was like, it would be marvelous if there was a 15-minute Wednesdays at 6 o'clock, you know, that you can tap in and listen to Nancy give an update of it. Here we're at, here's what we're doing, instead of trying to piece, well, I heard this, I heard that, I heard this. And, you know, maybe we'll get to know Daniel better and saying it's the Daniel 15-minute shot, you know, even if it's once a week or twice a week, where people can actually zero in and know what's been going on since the fire and get that information out. Another piece I want to know is, how would the county answer the questions that you're asking us tonight?
So your question, question is how the county itself or county employees specifically would answer these questions?
Yes.
Okay.
As in both of those, but just once again, it's part of that communication. And this meeting that we're having tonight, it would have been wonderful to have 6 months ago, and it didn't have to be perfect. You know, those meetings, just to get some information out and get that feedback in, we're saying, here's some things that we're working on. Here's what, you know, if we had a fire today, we'd be going like, well, are we going to hear from them? How are we going to do it? So I guess those were the two huge points that I wanted to get to, you know, where are we at? And hopefully by the night, we're going to say, hey, if we had I hate to even say this, knock on wood, but since that Cascadia thing's sitting out there, that's the only thing sitting there that we haven't had recently, and said, but now, so you can't go anywhere. Yeah, you know, or you want to go somewhere, but those that can't get out because of roads or bridges down and all that stuff. So what are, to this point exactly right now, where is the emergency plan? And I know we're taking input and stuff, but it's that communication piece that once a week, I'd love to see Daniel on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock for the, you know, update, or Nancy or whomever. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Okay. So it sounds like an invitation for Daniel to come into your homes once a week during and after an incident like this. Yes. And so, like, as you said, most of this of your feedback is post fire, but also saying, you know, that this idea of clear information, regular information that you can count on. And you did have a question about how the county employees or how the county itself might answer these questions. And keeping in mind the point of this today is a listening session to hear the public, and really is just the first step. And so you will hear more from county folks, but it does say something to their intent that they really want to hear folks now. I'm going to hand this back to Lauren. We're going to continue on the next slide, although there are a couple of folks still in line who may be commenting on prior points.
And
so
that's okay.
If we could advance Katie to the next. Absolutely.
Thanks, Corey. So the next topic is evacuation protocols. And the prompts here are, what was your experience? Some of you have shared that already, with the county's evacuation orders from fire and local law enforcement protocols, and what worked, especially what worked well, and what can be improved. And as you line up to offer thoughts about that, I also want to note that there is one phone-in person, and if you wish to raise a hand, you press *9, and then I will see that you are interested in speaking and call on you. Of course, feel free to speak to any of the topics that have come up so far. And I just really want to acknowledge some of you have used the language of trauma. This was a very big event, and we recognize that. And that is certainly part of what prompts the desire to hear from all of you about how that was and what could do differently next time. We could do differently next time. So thank you for that. Joan, I have you again, and I'm going to see if this works for you this time. Joan, would you like to unmute? There we go.
If not, she may want to provide input by chat and we can read that.
Oh, okay, that's an idea. We cannot hear you. So if you are able to type in the chat, we could take your question there. Okay, so I'm going to go now to Gordon. Gordon?
There in the middle.
Okay. Yeah, you should be able to hear me now.
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
The first thing is Martin was very much on point. So kudos to him I felt he spoke extremely well and summarized many of the points which we've discussed. I'm actually here with Marge and Rick from Firwood CPO, and we are somewhat rural, stuck halfway up a mountain, and we were very aware that something very bad was coming down the road when we saw all the smoke over in Dover and in Georges and places like that. I've got a few points on here. The first one is relating to the marking of the roads outside the property, because it would appear that the marking of the roads was what preempted some of this Antifa talk and some of the militia kind of things that were going on. And I think a simple X on the road from the police to say that people have been contacted and not the status of the homes might be preferable. Okay. We also had a meeting, it was an impromptu meeting at the Grange down in Eagle Creek, which seemed to be very similar to the meeting that Martin was referring to. And this was not a good way of communicating. It was communicating to people who were maybe a little bit militant in their own right, and led to a little bit more militancy on the roads. All of this really came about because people were scared. And when people are scared, they do take the law into their own hands. And while we did see the occasional police officer, the major effort from the chief of police at the time was to threaten the people who were on these control points. And that really didn't satisfy the need. We believe that there should be some consideration given to closure of roads into wilderness areas in the same way as PGE are shutting down preemptively power lines. We think places in the wilderness areas, we should try and discourage people from going up there and shooting guns and things like that when there is a particularly high risk. We happen to have a shooting area at the top of Wildcat. It's a little bit of a lawless area, and it's probably not appropriate that people are up there playing and shooting when there's a high risk. So preemptive closure of some roads where there are no houses might be a sensible route forward. I've got a note here about most people use cell service, not landline. Service is spotty. And I've also put a note down saying timestamp all notifications, because I do recall when we were looking at the county website, we didn't really know whether this was the latest news or the news from Friday or quite when it was. So every piece of information really needs to be timestamped so that people can understand whether it's, you know, new news or old news. I've got one here which it may come up on a future slide, but I'm going to throw it in anyway, that there are certain areas where people are struggling to rebuild their houses because of the fees, permits, approvals, etc. And in an emergency, there should be consideration given to suspending fees, permits, approvals for replacing like-for-like damaged and destroyed property. It is unconscionable that people have to pay through the nose to knock their house down after it's been destroyed by fire, and they're slowed down from trying to get themselves back into habitation. But overall, I know everybody's working extremely hard to get this right, and we certainly appreciate your efforts. But one comment was made that it would have been good if we could have done this 6 months ago, and yeah, I think probably they're right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. And I know, Marge, you said you were there as well. Did you want to?
Marge has a question as well.
No.
Yes.
I just said Gordon did my question, so now I got to shut up. But no, the one about the about the evacuation. I went from zone 3 to zone 1 with no 2 in between. Didn't know about it until the sheriff's knocking on the door. That was my experience. So I didn't have much stuff packed. which is part of my own slowness, but experience. But I was going to ask the thing about the closing roads as fire prevention. That was a neighbor asked that one too. So anyway, he's asked most of them. Thanks.
Great. So those are all really important comments, and I appreciate your careful thought about suggestions going forward, timestamps, closing roads, etc. Thank you. And I also want to note that several of you have put some stuff in the chat, and Katie is responding. So when there is information to share back, this is part of what the county is gathering right now, and we'll get that back to you. Okay. So next I have Len.
Okay, it says I'm unmuted. I don't know if anybody can hear me or not.
We hear you great.
Okay, one thing as far as evacuation protocols is kind of fits, I suppose. The evacuation of livestock seemed like was very hectic about people being reported to go to the Clackamas County Fairgrounds. Then that didn't work. They had to go someplace else. And we had people here in Stafford area trying to coordinate places for livestock to be taken to shelter. There didn't seem to be any plan in that regard. And that would be something for planning ahead to inventory the livestock location, and in case of an evacuation necessity, how to get them to where they need to go. And then when the secondary places are themselves threatened, how to move them from there, if you will. So these were areas that were quite hectic as far as people trying to respond. We had people in our area trying to coordinate locations to bring stock if they had to for temporary shelter. Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Len. And I have the person on a phone ending in 916. You have raised your hand, so go right ahead. And tell us your name also, please.
Yeah, this is Joan again, trying to get through.
Oh, hi, Joan. Good.
Can you hear me? I'm vice chair of the South Clackamas CPO, and we actually had fire and homes burn in our area. The notification was my neighbor calling me and telling me that he had gone down to a place where he could see the fire off in the distance and the wind was blowing it our way. And when he also mentioned that when he called 911, that they said, "What fire?" Beachy Creek fire. Okay, we live in an area, we don't have cell phone service unless we have internet. And the electricity went out that night, September 7th, I guess it would be Labor Day. So we didn't have electricity all night. The people that he couldn't reach or I couldn't reach, we went down and knocked on their doors. Fortunately, my home was spared only because of topography and neighbors. And we had neighbors that were out there saving homes, didn't evacuate, kept it up. And but when I drive into town, which the closest town is Malala, I go through this horrible burned site of homes that are lost and trees that are standing. Oh, and also I found out not that long ago that there's some way you sign up to have an emergency call to tell you to evacuate or whatever, but it would only be something when the power's out that you could reach people by calling their landline. So we had nothing. The other thing was, it was finally towards the end of the week is when the real firefighters showed up, and they were very professional, very good. But if it wouldn't have been for neighbors and equipment, we would have had a lot more losses. So that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing with the livestock, I think, yeah, that is important. I called my daughter and she came up and got the horses and took them, actually the horses had to be evacuated like 3 times. So yeah, I think we need to have, I think we definitely need better communication, and people who live in the place where the fire is going on. Fire came within a half mile of my home. I think they need more support. And I don't think anybody from the sheriff's department showed up for a few days afterwards. So that's my input.
Thanks, Joan. Do you have a sense of what more support would look like for you?
I think if they brought tankers of water up and they didn't turn around and go off someplace else, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I think that there should be some notice. I think there should be better information on how you sign up for these alerts, because I just heard about it. I didn't realize that they were actually calling people. But then at the time that we were getting ready to evacuate, 911 didn't even know there was a fire.
Yeah, I heard that. And where would you seek information about how to sign up? Where would you be most likely to look for that?
Well, now that I know that it exists, I probably could check something with the county website.
Okay.
I don't know what to say. Maybe do an outreach and see if people in a certain area, or maybe the whole county, that they're aware of it, especially people that are not people that are evacuating the fires 20 miles away from them, but people that live in the area where they could be affected. I think I'm looking more at, we had a neighbor that had a generator and he was pumping water out of his well and into a swimming pool. And I think I might get a generator this year. And I don't know that I would evacuate. I think I would just stay here and make sure the place didn't burn.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joan. I'm glad you got through. All right. You persevered. That's great. All right, Tammy, I have you next. Tammy, you'll need to unmute yourself. Looks like you did, and then muted again. There you go.
Are you
Awesome.
there?
Yep.
Great.
We hear you.
I know Katie's shocked because I am usually so chatty, and I chose to wait right to the end because so many of the comments I just agreed and agreed and agreed. I think if you took everything Martin said and changed the word Redland to Beaver Creek, it's identical. Beaver Creek Road, the world's largest parking lot. We too had, unfortunately, a militia, as Sonia Fisher stepped in and helped us get more involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion because of the fear that generated having people literally selling militia t-shirts with rifles on them. So it got pretty bad out here as well, very sad. So I have a little bit on all of the items.
Sure.
I really can't say enough about I had a plan. Green, get all my livestock out. That was not a problem. Helping all the neighbors. Yellow was gonna be, get me my stuff, my pets, their stuff, and then red, go. But we went green, red, and that just put a humongous amount of pressure, not just on me, but that's what caused the Beaver Creek Road backup. Let me think. Okay, then the next thing would be we are pretty involved in our community in the Hamlet of Beaver Creek area. And so a lot of communication came our way to the CPO or the Hamlet. Constant Facebook. We've got like the Beaver Creek Forum. That's where tons and tons of information was being shared, like getting livestock out. That was such a huge process. And thank goodness through Facebook, we found Cowgirl 911, and they were hauling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally thousands of animals out of this area. So I would never have known about them until other than Facebook. So thank goodness for that. Another one was, well, really important, there are more horses per square mile in Clackamas County other than Louisville and Lexington, just to clarify. But there's just a lot of animals. I think I probably hauled close to 500 just myself. So it's a big deal to figure out, and it wasn't getting them in stock trailers, it was now where do we go? Okay, next thing was the communication. In our little rural community here, I happen to live next to 2 firemen, and I immediately linked up with them, and they sent me a text at least every hour. They had to the second data. Where are the fires? How fast are they moving? In what direction? What area needs to get out now? How much longer you have? I mean, I had this constant flow of information from these 2 firemen. Well, I know the county isn't the fire department, but if I can do it, you can do it. You have to have a contact that can tell you what I was getting on an hourly basis. And it was completely accurate, way better than any maps I found on the internet anywhere. So that's just a thought of how to connect with them. I would like to bring into the wildfire conversation, as others have, the ice storm. I think the biggest thing the Hamlet of Beaver Creek learned was if we're in trouble, so is the county and all of its employees. You can't be everything to everyone. And we've so learned that lesson. We're trying to beef up our social media so that when these things happen, like the ice storm, I mean, all of us with chainsaws hit the roads. We were cutting the logs out. Thank goodness PGE shut down our grid, so none of us died. And then we hit the road with our pickups, and we were delivering generators, fuel, hay for livestock, food, wood, because people had fireplaces, they didn't have any dry wood. And it was the most amazing community feel and activity I've ever personally been through. It was heartwarming. And we were checking on our elderly neighbors, because you can't, the sheriff can't, the fire department, you can't get to them. None of us could get to us. It took, I think we had a micro 1-lane road for over a week where I live. So I don't even know that an articulated fire truck could have gotten in. And it took us, oh Lord, 2 weeks to even start seeing PGE out our way. So anyway, my point being, I don't think the county can be everything. I think what the county needs to do is look at the resources it does have and figure out how to educate us and better prepare these rural communities. I know for the Hamlet of Beaver Creek, that is our #1 goal, is to be 1,000 times better prepared than we were. And even though we weren't prepared, I know we helped a lot of people and saved a lot of animals, which was very cool. What else? Let me think if there was anything else. We did have both the sheriff, 1 minute. Bad dog. Bad barky dog. We did have the sheriff's department as well as the fire department attend our Hamlet community meetings on Zoom and gave us wonderful information about what they went through, gave us lots of advice, because I think every one of us are very concerned about this summer and wildfires. And so I think we're going to see a lot more, and we all need to start months ago getting ready for that. So we got lots of good information from those guest speakers. That is the majority of it. And I think if anything, having a complete understanding of these amazing resources in the internet world, such as Cowgirl 911, those people today I see on a constant basis. There's a fire down in California, and they're rushing hay out of this area in stock trailers and taking it down. It is constantly going on. They are an amazing organization. I don't know how they did it. And then I know your next item is recovery. It was one thing to get them out, but oh heavens, it was huge to get all those animals and people back. And I think the most frightening thing for me was I had people call and they said, I'm not leaving unless every one of my animals are out of here. Mm-hmm. So we were chasing chickens and trying to load a very obnoxious pig, and that's horrible, because they had heard if they leave their livestock, they cannot come back and feed and water and check on them. And it's exactly what happened in Estacada. And I had 2 women in particular just crying on my shoulder because they couldn't go back to see if their cows and chickens were dead. And it was horrible. But anyway, sorry. You knew I wouldn't disappoint, Katie. Sorry.
Oh gosh, thank you very much, Tammy. It was very thorough and lots of good ideas in there. I really appreciate your feedback. Nothing, for heavens, nothing to apologize for. Okay, so we are going to turn to the next domain area. So go ahead, Katie, and put that up, and Corey will take this one, and then I think Gordon, you're next. Give us a minute. Yep.
Yeah, so I'll give that permission there. Oh, here it is. Okay, the reentry protocols. So Clackamas County leveraged all of its main communication channels to help keep residents informed during the wildfires. For example, the website, social media channels, email notices, and press conferences. What was your experience with the county's reentry protocols? What worked? And what can be improved? And yes, and looks like Gordon, you are
okay.
up.
I was just listening carefully that everybody in the county, and there are hundreds of thousands of people, all want to be personally notified of exactly what's going on. And clearly that's an impossibility for the county. However, what you could do is have a section on your website. So it's just like a news update, and you click on that, and at 9 a.m., 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. you do a live broadcast through that and tell people what the hell's going on. And when it's finished, you just have a recording of that until the next one. That way anybody can go on to the county website and find out what the latest state of play is. Really, it wouldn't cost a lot of money to do that either. Anyway, that's an idea.
Mm-hmm. Great. So thank you. So this is a very specific suggestion. While you say it's probably unlikely that everybody could get an individually structured notification. This idea about the website, specific times, similar to other comments that maybe specific times so people can tune in, but this in particular to the website and a news update, and it could be recorded and folks could check in if they're able to get to the web. That's great. Okay. So thank you, Gordon. We've heard a number of really good suggestions. I don't see anybody else online. We've heard a lot about livestock and animals, and I think we've even heard Joan's dog sounds like he was trying to assert himself in the conversation and remind us about the animals as well. So this next topic is in particular about re-entry, and I'm wondering if any folks, I don't see anybody with their hands up. Perhaps somebody wants to speak up. Let me check the chat and see if anybody's speaking up. Okay. All right. I don't see anyone unless I'm missing somebody. Oh, looks like Brent is ready to speak. All right, Brent, I'll connect you here. So you just need to unmute. Oh, there you are.
Okay, well, I have to say that the reentry program was handled. Nancy Bush was giving updates fairly regularly. And of course, the outcropping of all of the community and the Red Cross, they actually did a superb job in making sure that people had what they need and the sites that were available. I mean, in the aftermath, I have to commend the county and the Red Cross and all of the public and the communities that gave time and made sure that everybody had everything that they needed. And so I think, really, as far as the reentry goes, I mean, I think it was handled very well, and I have to commend all the people that were involved if I left out anybody. Thanks.
Okay. So specifically in this issue of reentry, that your experience was that went really well in your experience. You said it was a superb job, and specifically commending the county and the Red Cross and all the community organizations that jumped in. So thank you. That's very specific. Okay. All right. And it looks like Gary, you have something to add. I'll put you on here. Just one moment. Let's see. Okay. So Gary, you're up if you unmute. Looks like you're still muted. Oh, there you are.
Okay, hello. It's Leah Brawlier, actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Leah Brawlier. Okay.
From the Colton CPO.
Okay, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate this chance to offer input. I too, or we, were also in an unnotified circumstance, which it all unveiled very quickly for us within just sheer hours. Did we have to evacuate, including with animals and such? One thing I noticed that day, as I was, number one, not a Facebook person. I didn't have any knowledge about any of it. I was out happily cleaning up that sunny morning after the storm the day before and spent hours doing it before I started to question the wind as it was increasing again. And I kept trying to call people and get information and I couldn't get any. Finally, Gary kept driving to town to the center of Colton and people were gathering, but again, people had no information. I think the second time he went down, he found somebody who told us about signing up for the emergency notification, which he did do, thankfully. But an odd thing is that not once that entire day did I hear one fire bell go off from the fire station. There was nobody driving up and down the street from fire department or from anywhere else, at minimum, with a blowhorn saying, come to, or, let's get some information shared. I was calling neighbors that I couldn't reach, not knowing most of them were probably already, leaving. People out here had been bringing their horses out to Colton for safety, only to have to later evacuate them further to some other location. So traffic was going both ways and wasn't going well both ways either. We got out of here by the skin of our teeth at approximately 5 o'clock on the last call, and we had, 8-inch size ash falling on us. It was pitch black. And it took us 3 hours to get to Canby, for which we were very grateful to be received. But I would say, and we were there for 10 days. And when we came home, of course, there was a massive cleanup in every conceivable manner before we could even get in because of the ash. And the trees, I believe, were scalded terribly from the winds of the pre-fire, so that when the ice storm hit them, they were weakened. So I think that kind of added to a lot of the problem. And yes, like many have said before, I think it was traumatizing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have actually recovered yet.
Yeah.
So I am grateful if we can continue to learn. Since I didn't hear anything from the fire department, I am curious about how in areas where they have hurricanes and other large weather-related problems, I wonder if a sound siren would be beneficial at local fire departments should we be in a situation where evacuation actually is occurring, and then some kind of, message. I'm not sure how that's coordinated, but it would be something people could possibly relate to if they aren't connected in any way. Fire bell or even a siren can go a good distance. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Yes, thank you, Leah. Yes, and we certainly hear the traumatic event. You spoke a lot about that day, and it sounds like even just being on the roads was really difficult. And certainly want to acknowledge that you're still recovering from that day. And at the same time, you have some suggestions, maybe specifically for the fire department, and be curious how you think of ways to get that information to them. But you're really talking about notification and how difficult it was on that day in getting information regardless. So appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's see. I'm just checking the participant list right now. I don't see anybody else's hand up. I did see a suggestion I can read. It was from Mike. Mike said that at some point a link to the wind forecast map was provided. And he said it was helpful to see what might have happened with the wind, smoke, and fire. And so again, all these comments are being taken in by Katie. Katie's responding to these and sending out things like the slides. Katie also mentioned somebody else that will be sharing the slides with everybody as well. So all this information can be shared. Yes, and Mike.
And actually, Corey, Mike found the link a little further down in the chat and shared it with everyone. So thank you.
I see that. Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, and let me check the list to see if anybody's got their hand up. Oh, looks like Karen Bjorklund. You have your hand up, and there you go, unmuted. There you are.
Thank
Welcome,
you,
Karen.
and thank you for saying my last name correctly. It's
Oh,
always
you're
a joy. I live in the Jennings Lodge area, so like Rich was saying for Oak Grove, we were under a level 1 evacuation and didn't get to a 2 or 3, but we were severely impacted by smoke. And as a person with asthma, so I have basically lung issues, that was a very big deal. So one of the kinds of information I had to find and would have been useful had the county provided it was information on air quality. I was on the air quality maps every other hour. What's the forecast? When is it going down? And then what do you do to your house to stop that smoke from coming in? So that kind of experience and that kind of information would have been very useful to have. I found it because I did have power and I did massive amounts of internet research trying to figure out what to do and what not to do in your house. For example, when the smoke first started coming in, I didn't think about it and I vacuumed my house. Turns out you shouldn't do that. So I made it worse without understanding that I thought, oh, I'm doing a good thing. I'm keeping up with my vacuuming. But that was a very bad thing to do. So it turns out there are a lot of things that would be very useful to know if you're remaining in your house to do with the smoke. And then if you're not, but you're coming back to your house, so in the fire damaged areas, to know how to detox your house so that you can come back in. I remember talking to Martin about they couldn't go back in their house for so many days after it was safe to go back because of the smoke in the area was so bad. So those other aspects could really benefit from some education for all of us as well.
Thank you. Yes, this is a specific area around smoke issues for folks who have lung problems, really for anyone. But you're specifically highlighting anybody with asthma could have some serious concerns about smoke issues. And you're bringing up something that I wouldn't have known. The idea that even vacuuming might not be a great idea. So you're highlighting the need for education and information that could come from the county around smoke, and you're specifically requesting some resource for air quality forecasting, and that was something that sounds like you spent a lot of time trying to find since you were sheltering in place. So thank you, and also I guess one other thing to say is that you emphasize the idea of how to detox the home and getting resources as well for that. So those are all really helpful suggestions. Thank you, Karen. Did I get all that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness. Okay, let's see. How are we doing on time, Lauren? Are we ready to move on to the next one?
I think it's useful to transition to the next one.
Yeah, okay.
Katie, you wanna? Yeah, there we go. So this is our last domain, and it's about the recovery efforts. And so we are interested in hearing what your experience was with the county's recovery protocols and effort, what worked and what can be improved. And also, I just want to ask Karen or anyone else, it is useful to know the information that you're seeking, right? Like what to do in smoke and how to keep air from coming into your home and all of that. Where would you be most likely to get that, to seek that information? Because I think that's really wise, and this helps us put our efforts in the right places. So Bill, I have you next. Go right ahead.
Okay. I wanted to just point out that the recovery is from not just the fires, but from the ice storm, from everything else.
Yes.
We have tons of branches along the side of the road that came down and are just waiting to catch fire this season. And I wonder, what is the county's recovery protocol for removing all of the detritus along county roads and along all of the roads that are in the county, chipping it up so it's not just ready to burn?
Okay, great. That, so you want an answer to that.
Yeah, I have personally, I have about 4 acres, and I paid a couple of $1,000s to clear the upper 2 acres so that it's not quite as much of a fire hazard. But the lower 2 acres on the slope are covered in branches and stuff like that. I'm really scared because if we get as dry as I think it might happen, right below me is a lot of stuff ready to burn. And I know the county gave us a credit card for a little tiny bit of relief, but it wasn't nearly enough to actually get anything really done. So I'm worried about what happens in this next fire season when all of this dried, dead wood laying on the ground gets a spark.
Yes, makes sense. Very good point. And so I'm imagining that these are the kinds of questions that county staff will be being able to prepare responses to maybe tonight, but certainly at a later meeting. Okay. Anyone else want to respond to recovery efforts? And Martin.
You hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
I don't have anything specifically on recovery. I will mention to Bill, I am glad to have my own chipper shredder. It's made a big difference. I have the same problem with lower and upper fields, and I'm above a tree forest, and the amount of downed material on the ground below me in the forest is impossible to clear out. I don't see it happening in any other way except a fire. It's very frightening. But what I really wanted to say also is that I love the county that I live in. You know, there's a lot of cynicism about government, but it doesn't apply to Clackamas County. I really feel from the commissioners on down through staff, the PGA, people really care. And this is part of that process. And I so appreciate it. And every chance I get, I try and communicate that to the people out here in my area. I have one suggestion though I'd like to make to the county. Engage with the CPOs on this. CPOs are in the business of building community. That's what we are charged with doing, along with looking at zoning applications and other specific things. We are a source for the county to make communications out to people. We are a source for the county for volunteers, for things like animal removal, traffic, helping with traffic on evacuation. We can help you find the people and the support that you will not be able to take on yourself. Let us help you. I think you tonight you're hearing mostly from CPOs, and we want to help. And I just want to request that you do that. Engage with us on all of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, I think all of you who have shared tonight, and those of you listening as well, I think your care for the communities in which you live is really evident, and that's why you're offering these thoughts and feedback. And I think that's part of the point of having a feedback session like this. So thanks. Mm-hmm. Other thoughts about recovery, or you can sort of open it up if you can think of anything else that you want to make sure that you share in this session this evening. Oh, okay, Leah. There you
Good.
go. Yep.
As far as recovery goes, after a lot of this process, a lot of us live in the wood. So we're behind. The cleanup is monumental, and we're behind just in general now after a year of COVID. In addition to all these things, just like behind, and not for a lack of going out and putting a good effort out. It's just you don't catch up that quick with large things that have to be moved. It is a very time-consuming thing, and there is a lot of tree damage.
Mm-hmm.
Just in addition to that for everyone, yeah.
And what would help, Leah?
Well, that's tough. I've heard that there have been county resources or some type of resources out there for helping take down trees and things that have either been damaged or could be threatening. I'm not sure how one gets in contact with anything like that. As you say, a lot of us are aging rural people, but we have forests, and some of them are mature trees, but it's snapped off halfway up the tree, for instance. So it's up, and most of us don't have tools that go 40 feet up. I mean, there's lots of ways to take down trees. Some places you can just fell them, but it's not like that in all areas. So it complicates physical recovery like that. So just a point of the fact that once you get out into these widespread woods, and everybody's got hills and dales, so you can't see the vastness of this level of cleanup, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Great.
thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Leah. All right, and Brent, I have you next.
Well, I think in the closing, I think if this is the closing, a lot of the people that are here today know that I have a lot to say because I was on the front line. I was on the front lines in North Dakota when I watched the firemen run away and leave the people there, for their houses to burn, their properties to burn, while the only community people were there to stay and fight the fires and, save as much as possibly they could. I would encourage the county to, get the fire department, Clackamas Fire in particular, at the table. I would like to see the sheriff's department at the table because there were accusations made of Antifa and other things that caused militia. I don't want to go on with the detail we saw because they were embarrassing. And we did stay when they told us to leave. We did fight the fires. We did save homes. We did save lives. We did save livestock. And I think now we're in the fire season. We're expecting some rain here in the next couple days. But fire season is upon us. We need to take this seriously. We need to look at this. We need to try to coordinate with several people, and we need to try to get a plan. And, the Clackamas Fire people wrote a article in the Pamplin paper, and they indicated that defendable spaces were at hand, and to recognize what defendable spaces were. I'd like to see more education in firefighting in like Tualatin Valley Fire fights, wildland fires. And if they're going to be our firefighters, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the county sheriff's department admit that there were fires started by other people. There's a bunch of misconception there. I think the truth is pure. And I think that most people unaware of the truth is a bad thing. So between the media and the county sheriff's department and the fire department, I think what we're seeking is truth. And once the truth is out, we can move forward. And that's what we're all looking for at this point. The finger pointing is over with. And now we need to move forward and try to enhance our lives in the community. So as Martin said, and Cammie Stevens has said, and Bill Merchant has said, Karen, I think that we all need to look at the CPOs for help with this, because I think that the CPOs have a hand on the community and we can pass this information along. And we can pass the information of defendable spaces. We can pass all kinds of information that will help these people, move forward and be prepared for what might happen next. And Mike from Sunnyside, certainly all the accurate information is what needs to be at hand, and how to address it and how to get it out to the people. And the CPOs is a great way to get this out, because we do have a lot of people that are interested in what's going on. And a lot of these people don't have the access to all of the updated information that's coming out today. They still want to meet in person. That's a community function in our area. So I just heard that today from one of our members. If we have to have a meeting by Zoom, I'm not going to be there. But if we have it in person, I'm going to be there, and then we can find out this information. So as time is passing and things are occurring, I hope we can get back to this personal touch, and we can get these efforts at hand. So I do appreciate you guys listening to us at this point, and thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Brent. And I really hear your points about the need for moving beyond finger pointing and really to get accurate information and from the correct sources, echoing the call to use the CPOs, and both for enhancing community and preparing for future events, and also the bid for in-person meetings. You are surely not alone in that desire. Thank you so much. And Gordon, I have you next. And Gordon, you may be that may be the end, and then we will move to the closing remarks. But I will say, folks, that this is not your last time to offer feedback. Very much appreciate all of you offering your thoughts and experiences and suggestions. Gordon.
Okay. Yeah, I thought those points were extremely well put, as with Martin. I mentioned before that you can't do this on your own. You can't get out there and talk to thousands of people. And it's absolutely true that the CPOs represent the community who want to do something. And I think the best example of that was, this fiasco of militia and all the rest of it, that we didn't have deputies who were patrolling the area. And so people felt the necessity to step in and do their own thing. Well, rather than criticize them, guide them, put out some guidance from the sheriffs, provide some community security yellow shirts or something, so that maybe they have some kind of identity. I actually spent many, many hours at the junction of Furwood and Wildcat with some very nice people down there. There were no guns visible, but I've never been inundated with so many drinks and pies and other things, because just about everybody who went past tooted their horn and said, "Thank you very much indeed." And all we actually did was sit in the car and shoot the breeze. But there was a need for a presence or something, and to guide those people and make them effective seems better than trying to frighten them off. So, but this is a good step. But yeah, you're right. We didn't have Sandy Fire in here, and we didn't have Clackamas Fire, and we didn't have the Sheriff's Office, and we didn't have a deputy. So there's a lot missing from this meeting.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Gordon. And really the way to think about this is you who are community leaders seeding the further conversation that will happen with all of those appropriate partners. So thank you. So many useful ideas here. Great food for thought, and really appreciate all of your care and contributions this evening. Thank you very much. So now I will turn it over to Katie for our closing.
Thank you, everyone. We have a couple minutes, and I noticed, Commissioner Savas, you were able to join us, so welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I wanted to give our commissioners just a moment, if you have any closing remarks, just a minute or two to share anything before I close the meeting out. Is there anything our commissioners would like to add to the meeting this evening?
Yeah, Katie Wilson, this is Commissioner Shaw. I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to thank the people who called in tonight. I heard the concern in your voices, and I believe that the county is taking your concerns to heart. One of the things I would like to urge emergency management to consider is that tonight in the calls, there have been some reoccurring issues brought up. I would urge emergency management to take those issues, prioritize them, and then see what we can do to work through the CPOs to put some solutions together. They might not be the end all be all, but some solutions together so that when we get to somewhere around 1 August, we have a plan to coordinate so that when God forbid, if those fires come again this summer, some of the frustrations, fears, and problems that our people experienced last year won't happen again. At least not as bad. We can't maybe hope to get things perfectly right. In disasters, there's always going to be confusion, but the bottom line here, what I'm saying is this: the county now must take the concerns that were called in tonight. And I've talked to many of these people who called in today. They know what's going on. They are the people that we need to work with to implement some new procedures. So those are just some ideas. Thanks again, Katie Wilson. Thank you again, Lauren McNeil, for hosting us tonight. And thanks again to everybody who called in, and good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Are there any other comments from our commissioners?
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think this was incredibly useful and important to do. And, you know, I had an opportunity with Chair Smith right after the wildfires to visit some areas up in Malala, and it was pretty devastating to see. And some of what you've said tonight is some of the same things I heard when we talked to citizens. They're pretty fresh in their minds after they had experienced it. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank our emergency folks for helping to pull this together, because their job is to the next go round. We're entering fire season again. We hope it isn't like last year, but it's their job to help manage all of this. And it was extremely important for our professionals who work in the field and our community leaders to get together to do this debrief of how we can do things better. So thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Fisher, I see you're unmuting.
Yes, I'm unmuting. So I echo all the appreciation for everyone. Thank you so much. This was so very useful. And some of the key takeaways, so we hear bits and pieces from here and there, but hearing the concerns presented in this format, I really think creates a nice context and ability to prioritize what's next. So what we know we want to do is keep what worked. We want to maintain that and further systemize it and make sure that we build on our strengths. And then the things that didn't work along the lines of the communications, the marking of the doors after the sheriff's office went and did the evacuation, the misinformation and the concerns about Antifa starting fires, all of these, the livestock and the way, and some things that worked so well was the way that the community came together, because government isn't always going to be there for every issue, of course, and as disasters continue to happen, really strengthening that resiliency from the communities is so important. And that was a huge strength during this last wildfire, huge strength. So hearing that repeated is really valuable. Bill, I was interested in your comments about all the debris and the need to turn that into chips. I went out to Barton Park. I'm not sure if all the debris is still there, if it's been put into chips, but we had so many trucks going out and removing debris just from the areas where we are in charge of the right of way. And it was absolutely massive. So probably more work to do with that, because we aren't, as we know, Clackamas County isn't in charge of every road and every right of way. There are other partners that we have, and we do need to deal with these issues, because you're right, it's just ready to be combusted with the next wildfire crisis. So I know I'm talking on and on and on, but this is an issue I care deeply about. So I could keep going, but I won't, because we need to be done with this meeting. Very useful. Thank you very much for everyone taking the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Savas, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending and participating and contributing with your comments. Yeah, I think it's what happened last year at the wildfires is something that a lot of us will never ever forget. And the impacts to a number of the people that experienced loss was sad. As you probably heard, we saw some of that. We know some of those folks. The evacuations, the uncertainty, the lack of communication, whether it's been COVID initially or along the way, or it's the ice storm or the firestorm. I think one thing that we have learned from listening to to all the different sessions we've held is that the common denominator of breakdown has been communication along the way. And that goes across jurisdictional lines. It's not just the county, or it's not just this department or that city or the fire department or the state, but it's really all of us together. And we learn from these experiences. When I first came on the commission, and I met Nancy Bush, who was in charge of all this, emergency operations, and think, well, we had just come off the floods that washed out the Lolo Pass, and that was about that was in the first week of 2011. And we hadn't experienced anything since, and didn't really foresee that we would ever be a time like we've had in the last 12, 14 months, where we had three disasters, frankly, four, in such a short period of time. Appreciate everyone's input. I'm sorry for being late. I had some other county business that I had obligated myself to a long time ago, and I raced over here, and fortunately this is recorded, and so I'm going to listen to all your comments. We're always there. I did see the one comment, I think it was Rick, hello Rick, about your emphasis in caps there to listen. By all means, we try to do as many listening sessions as possible, but you, for one, I applaud you, because you email us sometimes when you see something that's bothering you and you email the county. I encourage everyone, in absence of any urgency or an opportunity to have a listening session or chime in, please get a hold of us. Or, BCC email, my email, psavas@clackamas.us. Just contact us. We're going to respond. But I do want to say thank you to everyone for everything you do. And remember, in these kinds of emergencies, we all need to pull together. sure, a lot of things went wrong, but a lot of things went right. And I found that the bonding of people coming together, meeting neighbors and people I never met before who were just there to help in some way or fashion or another. So as a county and as citizens and as leaders, we all pull together, and we appreciate you being part of that. So thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I want to echo what our commissioners have shared. Thank you all the volunteers that joined us tonight, all of our community leaders. I want to give a special thanks to our CCI volunteers. I don't know if everyone's aware of how much your CCI representatives advocate for you and have advocated for you to make sure that this debrief process happens, and to provide as much feedback as possible so that we can try to have an inclusive process that includes as much of your feedback as possible. So thank you so much to our CCI volunteers. Our next steps will be we will have a policy session with the board to take a deeper dive into the fire response and learn a little bit more about how we can improve for the next time, or maybe there won't be a next time, hopefully. And then we will have a broader community listening session to include the community members beyond the CPO and Hamlet programs. So that will be an opportunity for everyone in the county to participate if they wish. We are planning on having other panelists from our partnering jurisdictions there. So I do hear you, Gordon, on your feedback that it would be nice to have our partners listening to the feedback. So we are working on that. And then we want to have a follow-up community leaders meeting to take a deeper look at how CPOs and Hamlets can take a more active role in supporting their communities to be more prepared for future emergencies and also during response. So we hear you that you want to do even more to serve your communities, and we are grateful for that. And we look forward to continuing to engage you on this subject. Thank you so much for your time. We can't thank you enough. I want everyone to have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.